further ado, let me turn the program over to George Sabbi, KC2GLG. George is our 47th consecutive speaker in our monthly speaker series. And George is speaking about a topic that I think is very, very relevant in terms of today, in terms of looking at SKYWARN. SKYWARN spotters here? Okay, about maybe a third of the room, that type of thing. December is SKYWARN Recognition Month. December 7th is SKYWARN Recognition Day. And obviously, if you don't know anything about SKYWARN, you're going to know everything about it by the time this hour is over. George is, without a lengthy introduction, George is really the expert, really in the New York area in terms of just SKYWARN and what's going on. As I learned from George at lunch, the Bergen Passaic program is the largest in the state. It's probably one of the largest in the nation in terms of just when you look at metro density and obviously all the things that go on. It's really important, and obviously, there's a lot of participation due in large measure to George and his efforts. He's been involved in this, and people like Matthew as well. Thank you. So, I mean, he's been involved in it for a long time, has extensive experience in it, great background, has been a great trainer for all of us who's been through the training and everything. And so, without further ado, let me turn it over to George Sabbi, KC2GLG. George.
Good evening, everyone. Just, we had that wonderful blushing write-up in your newsletter. And just to give you a little bit of other background on myself, I'm retired, which is why I can put attention to things such as SKYWARN and sometimes amateur radio and things like that. Previous to that, as was noted there, I worked in the entertainment industry. I was a lighting designer, just as starting out, film, television, video, you name it, mostly specialized in large-scale special events. I have an Emmy, so I've got a background in that part of the world, which was my technology background. And then that graduated into the business end of the lighting and entertainment industry as I grew older and more mature, and ended up as senior vice president with a company called Production Resource Group, which is a multinational rental and production facilities all over the world. And I spent 20 to 30 days a month on the road traveling around between those different offices, overseeing their rental inventory and telling them if it was making money or not. How I got into math, I have no idea. I retired early, shall we say, forced retirement, medical issues. And for those of you who might have friends, family, even yourselves, I'm a 15-year dialysis patient, and my doctor says, keep it up, you got another 15 at least to go. So, and with that, thank you. Besides those things, as I say, the SKYWARN Coordinator for Bergen and Passaic Counties. I took over that role when Mike Adams passed a few years ago. He had been our coordinator just for Bergen County. And at one point, because Passaic County was so close to Bergen, the repeater we were using was technically located 10 feet within Passaic County up on Skyline Drive. We said, well, the National Weather Service agreed it should be a joint county operation, and that's the way we've kept it. We have, as we'll show you later, 4 additional people that work along with me as deputy coordinators. Matthew is here tonight. Joyce, KA2ANF, David, K2NUD, Ed, K2ISS, and Ed also works for the New Jersey Forest Service as a forest putter-outer. He goes, puts the fires out. I also am the Northern New Jersey section ARRL's DEC for SKYWARN. We had a meeting last weekend of all the ARRL's leadership in Northern New Jersey. My job there is to make sure they're aware of what's coming. I don't send them warnings that there's a severe thunderstorm, although the other night at 1 in the morning, I did send them a warning for a tornado in the area. But my job there is to give them a day or 2 or even a week's heads up before major events come. And as far as RACES is concerned, I've served, and if we ever do anything more with it, I don't know. But I've been the New Jersey State RACES liaison to the National Weather Service, New York. New Jersey, as we'll get into here, is covered by 2 Weather Service forecast offices. So that's where it gets a little complicated. I represent it the state RACES program to New York, and my counterpart, Dennis Dora, represented to National Weather Service, Mount Holly. So, hierarchy of the National Weather Service. Of course, it's government. So, where does it all fall in? Starts at the United States Department of Commerce. Interesting, money. The Weather Service has a job of protecting money. The National Atmospheric and Oceanic Administration is the next level down. Under that are various different things, such as the National Weather Service, which is in Silver Springs, Maryland. There are 6 regional offices and then 122 local forecast offices across the country, and places such as Guam. No idea why. Eastern Regional Headquarters is where we fit in. They're out in Bohemia, New York. There's 23 forecast offices under them from Maine down to South Carolina. With the National Weather Service, New York covers the 5 northern New Jersey counties up in the northeast corner, and National Weather Service Philadelphia, which is actually located in Mount Holly, coverage for the other 16 counties. So, as I said before, what is the mission? Provide weather, water, and climate data, forecast, and warnings for the protection of life and property and enhancement of the national economy. If the crops get rained out, if the fields are dry, it's a big hit on the economy. The goals that the National Weather Service has currently implemented are to reduce the impacts of weather, water, and climate events by transforming the way people receive, understand, and act on information. The idea is to get a weather-aware nation, that everybody is aware of the weather. But they're doing that by harnessing cutting-edge science, technology, and engineering to provide the best observations, which is where SKYWARN comes in, forecasts, warnings, and information. And evolve the National Weather Service to excel in the face of change through investment in people, partnerships, again, SKYWARN, and organizational performance. So, what does the National Weather Service Forecast Office look like? This is pretty much the cookie-cutter National Weather Service Forecast Office building that you'll find throughout the country. It's located on the grounds of Brookhaven National Laboratories out in Upton, New York. That's about 75 air miles from here. It used to be located in New York City, 30 Rock. They moved out there a while ago. They have everything from satellite uplink and downlink abilities, and we'll talk more about this later. That's a 110-foot tower with 7 amateur radio antennas on the top of it. That was put up a few years ago just for amateur radio. And we're going to take a tour inside. Anybody ever visited out there? Okay, a couple people have been there.
Hi, my name's Ross Dickman. I'm the meteorologist in charge for the National Weather Service here in New York. And this is where it all happens. This is our office. We have forecast, watch, warning, and advisory responsibility for more than 20 million people in the New York City metropolitan area. And that includes Northeast New Jersey, Southeast New York, all of Southern Connecticut, New York City, and Long Island. Welcome to our office.
Welcome to your National Weather Service. Come on in. Let's see what our morning coordination meteorologist has to say.
Hi, my name is Gary Conti. I'm the Warning Coordination Meteorologist. I'm the customer service representative for the local area. My job is to work together with all of our customers, our partners, to save lives and to minimize property damage. Welcome to our office.
Thanks, Gary. Now let's continue on with our tour past the office awards and into operations where the forecast happens. The National Weather Service, New York, New York is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We have almost 30 people here working around the clock to keep this office running. The operations floor houses 7 workstations, each with 6 monitors to help the meteorologists with their forecasting. As well, we have 3 large TVs that stay tuned to current weather or local news to help keep us aware of any weather events that may be currently occurring. To help with forecasting, the forecasters have a variety of tools at their disposal, one of those being 3 monitors running AWIPS, or the Advanced Weather Interactive Processing System. Forecasters have an access to a multitude of model data, observations, radar, and satellite information, and many other sources. These are what we look at to make our forecast. Once we've decided what we want, we turn to our Graphical Forecast Editor, or GFE, to input and edit the data using a variety of tools. As you can see on the left, we have many weather forecast parameters we forecast for. Once we are done, we ship the graphics to the web, and your forecast is complete. A unique tool we have here, which gives us real-time data in Central Park, is a direct feed to the New York City Central Park Surface Observing System. It allows us to access daily weather observations such as temperature, moisture, and wind. This observation is then retransmitted around the world. Sometimes it is our first and quickest notification of what is actually going on in real time. Right next to that screen is our NOAA weather radio system. All of our critical watches, warnings, and advisories are played. Some of you may have heard this sound before. This system is where we make sure those warnings are sent to the public and our tone alerted to help keep everyone safe. While doing our forecasts, we cannot forget about our other NWS offices or our partners. A dedicated set of phones are on the operations floor to directly speak to the National Hurricane Center and the State Operations Center for Connecticut, New York, and New Jersey. So how do we get all this data? First and most commonly known is the radar, which sits at 100 feet tall next to the office. In the office, we have a dedicated computer screen to constantly monitor the status of the WSR-88D. Here, we can check if the radar is having any problems, or we can change how the radar is running to help give us better information and, in turn, a better forecast. We can also watch where the radar is in its current scan, so we know when we will get our next set of fresh data. The black line around the circle tells us how far around the radar is turned, and the number shows how high the radar is pointing. With the radar, such an important part of our operations, we must always stay up to date on any changes. The New York office also launches weather balloons twice a day. We launch in every weather condition except lightning. We prep the radio sonde, which gathers the data here in the office to make sure it's working properly. Then we go down to our upper air building just down the road, and away it goes. This data is crucial for the weather models and to our local forecasting.
Hi, my name is Jeff Tung. I'm the Science and Operations Officer here at the National Weather Service. You may know me from Ask the Sue program with my friend here from the Minions. What we've seen so far is you've seen the tools that the forecasters use, the graphical forecasting capabilities, the AWIP systems. But how do we keep all those things going? What makes sure our equipment is working? What keeps the radar going? What keeps the weather sensors going at our airport? That's what we'll see next.
So how do we keep it running? Well, we have 4 amazing electronic technicians that work to fix and keep running everything we have. They are experts at the radar, the observing systems, and the weather radio. To help keep the techs organized and the office on the same page, we have a board that lists all the current equipment issues. Next, let's take a look at our equipment room. With so many computers running across the office and with so much data coming in, we have a room dedicated to the servers that the computers run on. These are what are responsible for making sure our forecast, and especially our critical watches and warnings, get to the web and into your home. As this tour comes to a close, we want to show you something special we have at our office. We have all the climate data books from the official New York City observation dating back to 1869, even though the various locations have changed. Inside, many times you can find handwritten weather observations and notes each hour of a given day in a given month. As we finish, we will give you one more look at our operations floor. We want to thank you for coming on this journey with us and learning a little bit more about your National Weather Service office in Upton, New York. Now, here's a final word from our meteorologist in charge to send you on your way.
Well, I hope you enjoyed your tour of the National Weather Service Forecast Office here in New York. As you can see, we're doing everything we can to help us build toward a weather-ready nation. If you have any questions or concerns, please give us a holler. You can do that through social media or simply just send us an email. Thank you very much.
So it's a little more than throwing darts at a dartboard to figure out what the forecast is. Even though they said that there's 30 people that work out there, you got to remember there are 24/7, 365 operation. So a normal shift is really only 3 or 4 weather forecasters. They might bring in an extra person on a very big severe weather day, carry somebody over on overtime, or the technicians then, again, they're working 24 hours also because the radar goes down, the guy's got to be there to go fix it. So it's not a whole lot of people in each weather forecast office across the country on duty at any one time. So what and why for the SKYWARN program? Tornadoes, thunderstorms, lightning, hundreds of injuries and deaths, as you all know. New Jersey is establishing itself as a new tornado alley. We seem to have it happening this year. So if there's over 10,000 severe thunderstorms a year, 5,000 floods, and more than 1,000 tornadoes, each one of those is forecast and warned by the National Weather Service. So in order to get on the ground data, what we call ground truth data, the National Weather Service established SKYWARN with partner organizations back in the 70s. This was out in the Midwest where the real tornadoes happen. SKYWARN is a volunteer program. As I say, 350 to 400,000 trained spotters across the entire country, all volunteers, keep their local communities safe with timely and accurate reports to the Weather Service. And information provided by the spotters, along with that Doppler radar, improved satellite has enabled the Weather Service to issue more timely and accurate warnings for tornadoes, severe thunderstorms, and flash floods. We have all those around here now. There's not, New Jersey is not being left out. So, what isn't the SKYWARN Spotter program? SKYWARN spotters are not storm chasers. You'll see this stuff highlighted across the TV every now and then. I know there were a couple dedicated television shows about it a few years ago. Chaser Con, crazy people with crazy vehicles. Now, I do have to admit, though, those of you who know Joyce, KA2ANF, yes, that is Joyce in the Weather Channel's tornado hunt vehicle for 2012. Scared the hell out of our neighbors as she drove it around the block. What's happening? What's happening? It was fun. Now, that was great that the guy who preps this vehicle with the radios and all the data that goes in it to do the TV link for the Weather Channel works at NBC, lives in Dumont. Yes, he's a ham. So he brought it over for us to see one night before we had to turn it back in that year. And severe weather, though, can be serious, even deadly. This is the tornado vehicle for 2013. Joyce was in the one for 2012. That's what happened to them next year on the El Reno tornado. That's the vehicle that Tim Samaras, Paul Samaras, his son, and Carl Young, all fatals on the El Reno tornado down in Texas, when it made a right instead of the 99% chance that they make a left. These were 3 of the most skilled, best, knowledgeable, safest scientists there were chasing severe weather. 3 fatals. So it is serious. So how does it work here in New York? You saw Gary Conti in that short video because that was made about 1.5 years ago. He is retired as a warning coordination meteorologist. Nelson Vaz is now our new warning coordination meteorologist, who is unique in the Weather Service. Most Weather Service employees continually move throughout the country to different offices. Nelson has been in for 25 years, all of them with National Weather Service, New York. Brian Kamecki is our SKYWARN program leader. He's a general forecaster, and we convinced him to get an amateur radio call sign a couple years ago, along with Gary Conti. So both of them had call signs at that time. How it works out in this area out of New York is a coordinator and deputies are appointed for each county, and that's usually done, and it is definitely done in Bergen and Passaic, with coordination with the local emergency management officials. So all of us work very closely with Bergen County and Passaic County OEMs. So how do you become a SKYWARN spotter? As we say, all SKYWARN spotters, coordinators, and deputies are under the leadership of the National Weather Service. Spotters do not report to Matthew. They do not report to me. Everybody is under the National Weather Service. The National Weather Service does free to the public local SKYWARN training classes. Retraining is required at least every 3 and 4 years. Bergen County class tentatively will be spring 2020. Passaic County, we did it last year. We alternate between those two counties because we have so many spotters out here. You'll see the numbers here in a few minutes. So every time we do a class, we get between 85 and 120 people on a rotating basis out those 3 to 4 years. There's no requirement for a SKYWARN spotter to be a licensed amateur radio operator, but it helps. I became a licensed amateur radio operator because of SKYWARN. I found out in my travels around the Midwest and the South, I had a scanner with me back in those days, and I would hear all these amateur radio people out in the field spotting as SKYWARN spotters. And I said, I got to do that. And I found out that I could do that because that happened to be the year 2000 when the code was dropped. Yes, I worked in rock and roll. I cannot hear anything but E's and T's. Doesn't matter how slow it is, how fast it is. I will tell you how many E's and T's I heard, but I can't tell you that that's an M or that's a W or that's a thing. Rock and roll, baby, it did me in. Local SKYWARN spotters. So through November, that's right now, actually. We have about 400 plus in Bergen County, 200 plus in Passaic, density of population, about 3,000 in the New York area. We are the largest, as Ed said earlier, out here in Bergen and Passaic. And as we said before, nationwide, 35,000 plus. They receive not only the training to recognize severe weather, but this is the key part. You get information on how to communicate that directly to the National Weather Service. The main way is that 1-800 number. You will get, if you take the course here out of New York, you'll get a 1-800 number for Albany, Binghamton, New York, Taunton, Massachusetts, Upton, New York, and Mount Holly. You'll get 5 1-800 numbers. You saw those phones on the desk there during the video. Those are the phones that if they pick it up, that's a ring down line right to the Hurricane Center, right to the Rock down in Trenton for the state police and the other states that Upton supplies. They answer the 1-800 number normally on the first or second ring. The reason is, if it's severe weather going on, your report might be the one that triggers the guy sitting there with his finger above the enter key to transmit the warning that hits NOAA weather radio, that hits every television, broadcast radio, the text systems, all the other many ways of people get warnings now. Your report might be all that person needed to make the confirm. And we have done that here in Bergen County. I know that you all know Gordon Beatty. He reported a rotating wall cloud out over Wyckoff, where Matthew used to live, one afternoon. Brian, our coordinator, was working the warning desk, and he told me after the fact, he said, I wanted to issue the warning, but do you know the pressure on me to issue a tornado warning for Bergen and Manhattan? If I issue a tornado warning for Manhattan, hell breaks loose. Gordon said rotating wall cloud. Brian's finger went down. The tornado warning went out. Luckily, we did not have it, but we had the wall cloud, and we did have a funnel cloud sighting off of that. So, who are these SKYWARN spotters? Well, OEM and public safety personnel. Most of the OEM people in our counties have taken the class. CERT team members. That's why we have so many good people in Bergen and Passaic County, is we've outreached into the CERT teams, and they have picked up enthusiastically becoming SKYWARN spotters. Of course, we have the weather enthusiasts and scientists. You'd be surprised the amount of scientists, and you'll see them sometimes when there's these, the tornado shows on TV. If you look in their dashboard, there's a radio on there, and it's got a frequency programmed on it. It's 146550. That's the SKYWARN Talk Around channel, simplex. So most of them have ham radio licenses. Of course, amateur radio operators are a great asset to SKYWARN because they have radios. They have battery power. They have generator power. So when things really hit the fan, hurricanes, blizzards, normally we can still get reports into the National Weather Service. ARRL in the ARRL, they have a memorandum of understanding of who does what between weather and ARRL and all that. And of course, teachers, lawyers, doctors, moms, dads, granddads, some of you, right? And grandmoms. In other words, everybody can be a SKYWARN spotter. So, how many people know we had a tornado in Paramus a couple years ago? Yep. It was not detected by Doppler radar, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about Doppler radar, why that happened in a bit. It was a very short-lived event. A severe thunderstorm warning, though, was active, and if you ever read the text of the full severe thunderstorm warning, one of the last sentences said, severe thunderstorms can and do cause tornadoes. So that was up, and we had a SKYWARN net up and active, and we're taking reports. The next morning after this happened, my phone rang about 8:30, and it was the Weather Service saying, what you doing today, George? I said, nothing. I don't have anything to do today. Great. Hook up with OEM. It came through Fairlawn, crossed into Paramus. We think it hit the George Washington Cemetery onto the Ridgewood Country Club grounds. Tell us what you see. They would not say, go look for a tornado, because they wanted me to be open-minded. If you could, there are specific signs that, as a coordinator, I'm taught by the Storm Prediction Center. We have a book, and we carry it in Joyce's trunk all the time. It's a big binder. It lists different scenarios, such as a cornfield, with all these descriptions of what the corn should look like if it was an EF0, an EF1, an EF2. A gas station with, the overhangs they have now over the pumps. Are the sides of the overhang ripped off? Are the whole overhang blown over? Is the overhang gone? Was there a house on top of what is now a concrete hole in the ground? That's an EF5. So that's how we determine it. They list a tornado is rated by the damage it has caused. No one's going out with a wind gauge and holding it up in a tornado and say, oh, it's 125 miles an hour. No, we don't do that. But this is the damage. This is the tree line between George Washington Cemetery and Ridgewood Country Club. These are all twisted. The leaves are stripped off those trees. There's twisting damage. The ground is covered with broken off trees that you can see there. These are two houses right off of, on Alpine Drive, right off of Paramus Road, just the other side of Century. Those trees, one went down to the right, one went down to the left. If it was straight line winds, as we had in Ridgewood a bunch of years ago, when 400 trees came down and every one of them was pointing to the northeast, that was a straight line wind that came out of the southwest. These trees went down two different directions right next to each other. Those houses were next to each other. That got my curiosity going. I walked out and saw this. I looked at Tom Metzler, Tom, that's who was with me from OEM, and I just said, tornado. Checked the book, checked the damage, called the Weather Service, took some pictures. There's the bulletin that they issued. Tornado confirmed near Paramus in Bergen County. EF1, estimated winds 100 miles an hour, 100 yards wide, 1.25 miles long. It had dropped it had picked up, it crossed over Century Road, it dropped back down again. We interviewed one of the land keepers there at George Washington Country Club, and he said, "What'd you see yesterday?" And he said, "Oh, you mean the big gray cloud that was spinning going by the front of my windshield as I was sitting back by the mausoleum, and then the pear tree went by? Oh, by the way, we haven't found the pear tree yet?" He said, "Yeah, that one." So that was the report. That's what it sums up to be. And then, of course, I got a nice little thank you there. Thanks to the Weather Service SKYWARN Spotter Coordinator and Bergen County OEM for performing the survey. What can happen with these storms besides not seeing it on Doppler? We have such great DPWs out here that by the time a meteorologist can get here from New York, out 75 miles on Long Island, come over the Cross Bronx, sure we've all done that, it's all in the shredder. You know, we got mulch now. We don't have any tornado damage to look at. Luckily, we were able to still get there because they were already cleaning up the cemetery at that point. So, how about some more things? Another thing SKYWARN spotters are trained to look for. It's a thing called a shelf cloud. That's what comes out in the front of a severe thunderstorm line. So it's a gust. So what would happen here on St. Patrick's Day? Strong gust front, west to east across Bergen County, and it went all the way, as I said, through New York and Connecticut. It went all the way out towards Massachusetts even. A shelf cloud was readily observable along with lowering along the back. That's the scarier part. So I called these in. I went to one of my favorite places to watch storms, the roof at the Garden State Plaza. And I don't know if you can see that or not, but this cloud is the leading edge of that gust front. When it hit me and I was up there on the roof, it was probably 30, 40 mile an hour wind gust right at me. After it went over, this is the back end of it. These things were dropping down from the back end of that. Tornadoes are on the back end of the storm. The wind and the rain is on the front end of the storm. And somewhere in the middle, if it's happening, is the hail. So that was a classic. They warned on this right after I gave them this report, New York City and out onto Long Island for a severe thunderstorm. The other night, Halloween night, how many people were up at 1 in the morning? Yeah, you see, we're crazy. What can I say? This is where I am during severe weather. This is what I'm looking at in the basement, a Doppler radar screen. Also, this is my direct tie-in to the National Weather Service Forecast Office. I can digitally type in my reports and also chat with the meteorologist back and forth. As you see here, this was about, see it on the clock, it says about 12:38 a.m., I think. This was the squall line, that red part there. That was all the way up here almost to Massachusetts and went all the way down through central New Jersey and did drop a tornado down in Morris County. This yellow box here is the tornado warning, which encompassed all of Bergen and Passaic County at that time. Both offices were, I've never seen so many warnings come out that were so large in coverage as were coming out with this storm. All of New Jersey at one point was under severe thunderstorm warning, and most of northern New York above us and down into Maryland. It was just, and it was hauling. This thing was moving at 65 miles an hour with 80 mile an hour wind gusts dropping down out of it. This EF2 tornado was confirmed 2 days later in Morris County by looking at storm damage. They had a tornado warning out, but there were no SKYWARN spotters out at that hour, so no one saw it. But they did confirm it 2 days later looking at the storm damage. So, Doppler radar. Just a quick thing about, because it's radio. And by the way, its call sign is KOKX out at Upton. They go by the same three, all Weather Service forecast offices have a 3-letter call sign, just like airports. So OKX is Upton. It's the abbreviation for Brookhaven. So the Weather Service radars are normally Ks. So this one's right there on the ground. It's KOKX. Next one going south for us is KDIX. It's on the ground of Fort Dix, DIX. Next one going south is KDOV, KDOV. It's down at Dover Air Force Base. So some of these radars are co-located, like the one at Upton is, you saw in that video. It's right outside the back door. Other ones are like at Mount Holly. They don't have a radar in their backyard, but they've got one at Fort Dix, and they've got one down south at Dover that are their primary radars. How Doppler radar works is it sends out a pulse. If it hits something, normally rain, not clouds, rain, it comes back. By judging the speed, and we all remember from our technician class, Doppler effect, right? Okay, whee! They can judge by that time signature of sending, receiving, and the other scans, the speed that it's moving. And now with dual polarized radar, where they're sending out not just a ping, they're sending ping, 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 ping. It's like stereo. They can now actually, with different algorithms, determine more accurately, is it hail, is it rain, is it snow, is it bugs, is it birds? Every once in a while, you'll see one in the newspaper or on the Weather Channel. Normally around dawn, you'll see this big burst on a radar screen. That's the birds taking off out of a swamp somewhere. Or the bugs just got startled and all they go up in the air. You'll see smoke from a forest fire on the radar. It has to see something. A day like today, that radar was just clean and clear because there was nothing to send that signal back. How the Doppler works, and we'll see that inside here in a minute. There's the dish inside you're all familiar with that goes around, but it also tilts, goes up. On a day like today, it was running in its super high res mode, meaning all the way up and all the way down, probably about 15 different scan levels, 0.5, 1 degree, 1.5, 2, whatever. Goes all the way up, goes all the way back down. That's a full scan series. During severe weather, it goes into what's called severe weather mode, mode 215. They cut out a bunch of those and just do 5 scans. It's a rougher picture, but they want to get they want a faster input of the data back to them. And there's a whole bunch of other ones between 5 and the 32, but that's, depends on what the weather is. So like a normal rain day, it's getting 7 minutes of scans. What we think happened with the Paramus tornado is it dropped during that 5-minute scan. So it missed it. It's scanning, it's above it. Why? The radar right now over our heads, the lowest it can see is 5,000 feet. That tornado was not probably above 5,000 feet. So the Doppler never saw it. We only saw the damage the next day. So let's get a little more into Doppler.
The WSR-88D radar network is one of the main tools of the National Weather Service in achieving its mission of the protection of life and property and the enhancement of the national economy. Here at the New York Weather Forecast Office, we are co-located with our NWS Doppler radar, KOKX. So first off, just how high is KOKX, the radar, at least the radar dish, and where we send out the signal? Let's check out from one of our electronic technicians.
Hi, my name is Michael Cox. I'm one of several electronic technicians at Forecast Office OKX, New York. We're about 100 feet above the ground at our radar at OKX.
So as we just heard from Mike, and as we can tell looking down at our office, we're a good ways up there, but that's where we need the radar so we can scan the weather, which is what we want to see, and not trees and buildings. There's a look at our upper air station. You can see it well below us, down on the ground. We're about 100 feet in the air again. So the radar will slowly spin around looking at the horizon, and we'll look at more of that in just a little bit. But it will do so and scan the different types of weather that we may see out there. For instance, a sea breeze and the cumulus clouds associated with it. But before we look in the radome and what works up there, we must see where the signal is first generated, down on the ground. Don't look down too fast. So let's check in with Mike, who's down in the RDA shelter, and we get to let you pass those caution signs today.
Here we have the high voltage section of our Doppler radar section, 10,000 volts, and a modulator, which produces voltage to drive our tube.
This device is also known as a claystron, and it's down here that basically is the heart of the radar, controlling the beat of the radar and the signal that gets sent out from up top where we were before to scan the weather. And what's the peak power of our radar, you ask? 750 kilowatts. So now we're up inside the radome, that white golf ball you see there in the sky. Our signal again got generated down on the ground, lots of power, and it's heading up to the radar. And the first place it heads into in the radar is what we call the pedestal. Pedestal consists of motors and wires and all sorts of parts that help to prepare the signal to head out to the radar dish, where it then gets sent out to see the weather. This motor, for instance, controls the elevation that the radar dish is pointed at, so how high up we can look at some of the weather that's out there. For instance, if we want to look way up at the top of a thunderstorm. So our dish is pointed where we want it, our signal's ready to go. It travels down this one tube called a waveguide. It actually happens on the other side of the dish as well, thanks to dual polarization technology. Travels down this tube, goes around the other side of the dish. As you can see, there's the waveguide continuing along. Goes to a device that's known as a feed horn. You'll see it here, right at the point. And the feed horn works with the dish to organize that pulse of energy going out from the radar. So we'll see those go out. And the radar is listening for any returns from those pulses back to it to tell if there's any weather out there. Radar actually spends more time listening than it does talking. It's a very good listener. So based upon the information of any returned signal back to the radar from any weather, bugs, birds, whatever the signal might have bounced off of, the radar then takes that information and, along with computer systems on the ground, turns it into those radar images that we're used to seeing, whether they be on TV, your computer, your smartphone, or elsewhere. And it doesn't stop there. NWS meteorologists and engineers are constantly looking at ways of improving our radars, such as the recent upgrade of dual polarization technology. These constant upgrades ensure that the National Weather Service continues to achieve its mission of the protection of life and property.
Any quick questions on Doppler? Yeah. Go ahead. Someone.
What's the frequency of the
microwave? Up there.
Yeah. I see, like, on the weather reports, you see, like, the beams are slowly sweeping across the map. Is that
computer generated right in the control room? No, it doesn't do that.
no, that's not actual. That's just a fake
television engineer at work. That's all it is. Because what it's doing is it takes all those scans and crunches them into a picture.
Right.
So when you see Doppler radar moving, it's like, you know, the old days of comic book where you drew the picture with a little movement and made the guy, you know, run around with a stick figure. They're tying together those individual pictures. I'm normally looking at a still picture because I want to see the data. I'm not looking at the movement other than see which way it's coming to begin with. Then I go into still data.
Is there, do you have to worry about, like, when one of these towers aims the signal right at the where another tower is located?
No, because they're all about 100-ish miles apart. So,
okay, so you're not going to blow out the receiver of the other tower.
Right. What's really interesting is to watch the radar around sunset.
Yeah.
Because if it's a clear day, as the sun sets, just about before it reaches the horizon, it comes down into the receiver, and you will see a bar, as if it's a bar of radar return. It's actually solar radiation from the sun. So you got to look right around sunset, a little bit before. Yes?
Where does the balloon go?
Normal, they go up to over 100,000 feet, and they burst because of pressure and temperature. So when they release it from Upton, 99% of the time it falls in the ocean because of the prevailing winds are west and
The
east.
stuff does come down.
It does all come down, and you could find one in your backyard. It comes down with a parachute. There's instructions on there.
Parachute.
Comes down with,
Oh, okay.
yeah, that little transponder thing. A couple years ago, there was, and this was right after 9/11, there was a scare because I was out with OEM on this one. Something fell into the Oradell Reservoir
Okay.
with a parachute. I'm going, I know what it is, I know what it is. We think it was one from Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's the next office going west.
Okay.
That releases the one. How that works is kind of interesting. You hear about weather models, all that stuff. Every day at 7 a.m., 7 p.m., 00, 1200Z, all around the world, those weather balloons are simultaneously released. It's not just a scatter. So what they're getting from the entire circumference of the world is a snapshot of the atmosphere. And there's thousands of data points. It's literally every, as it goes up, all comes down to signal. They take all that data, it all goes into these giant Cray computers down in Silver Springs. Even with that kind of processing power, it takes about 4 hours for the algorithm to generate an output. And then you'll see people talking about the European model, the GFS model, the NAM.
All right.
Those are the different scientific algorithm models that data points have gone into, and that's what the forecasters are using to then create their actual forecast. Yes.
So when you look at CBS, ABC, they're all giving you their top of radar. So they're
Yeah,
all,
if they have it. NBC has one, yeah.
so are they getting the same picture that
No.
NWS is getting?
No, that's their picture. They invested a couple $100,000 because it's good for selling their TV station.
So their forecast may not necessarily.
Well,
NWS.
as far as forecast, most of the networks rely on services like AccuWeather, which is a company in Pennsylvania that does weather forecasting. A lot of police departments get that forecast too. There's other companies like that around the world, around the country. Those are people who went to meteorology school, got a job at a company doing weather forecasts, and it gets sold. Your taxes have paid for all this other stuff, including all these Doppler systems. Only the National Weather Service can issue a watch or a warning. These other people can make any kind of forecast they want. They can use any method they want on their own. Or in many cases, they just read what the National Weather Service put out. And that's pick your source. I like these guys.
How is it that severe weather seems to obey county borders? You see
Yeah.
something like that, in Rockland County, everything's fine, but just like a few feet into Bergen County is.
Well, when they issue the warning, the polygon, they're drawing that on the map where it is. But weather is very finicky. We see something in Bergen County that happens all the time, and we all take a big deep breath and go, oh, because when the weather front hits the far end of the Ramapo Mountains out by West Milford, it breaks apart. And it splits, and it goes to Morris County, and it goes to Rockland County. So it has to do with terrain and the ocean. The fact that we are this close to the ocean, there's this big warm thing out there, even in the winter, called the ocean, and the thunderstorms just fall apart.
What frequencies do these weather balloons broadcast on? Can they be recoded by the average radio enthusiast?
You probably could. I do a Google search on it, but I don't know what it is. But it's just it's a radio frequency, but it's telemetry data.
Oh, okay.
So you're going to get a lot of beep 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 beep, that kind of stuff. That's my Riddy impersonation.
What's the hard tech on the radar? Is it?
No, it's soft. It's very soft. It's like plastic, mylar type stuff. Oh. Oh, the one at Upton? The one at Upton's 110 feet in the air.
No, before you said 5,000 feet.
Here,
Right, so it goes up at an eighth.
half a degree from the source. That's the lowest scan. The highest scan is about 25 degrees. We'll go and just blow everybody's illusions of the movie Twister. The cone of silence. The cone of silence happens at every radar because none of them tilt all the way up. So if they want to look at a thunderstorm hitting their office, they have to use the Fort Dix radar because the radar only goes to about 35 degrees before it comes back down. Matthew.
Why don't you tell everybody how there's a slice
Yeah.
that we cannot get from Upton?
Did you see what looked like a giant red and white smokestack out there at Upton? That is from the old coal plant, I guess, that fed even the Army camp back in World War I. They were guaranteed by the designers that 100-foot high radio dish at half a degree would not hit that smokestack. There is a pie slice out of the Doppler radar. You'll see it every time there's rain, where there's no radar return. That's the smokestack. So, yes.
Do SKYWARN people, the spotters, do they have any equipment at home like anemometers or barometers?
Some do. It's not, all you need to be a SKYWARN spotter, your eyes and the 1-800 number.
All right, but as far as determining, do they have a recording barometer that could tell you how fast the pressure is dropping?
Yes. There's the old analog ones with the piece of paper and the pen, and it goes by whatever scale of time, and you can do the math. The new electronic ones by Davis and other people, you just hook it up to your computer, and it'll tell you the barometer's dropping at X 0.001 per hour or whatever.
Okay, all right, cool.
Any truth to the assertion that trailer parks attract tornadoes?
No. It's just that they're not strong buildings. Yes.
Couple things, George. The castle in Central Park,
Yes.
what goes on there today, if anything, and what about Rockefeller Center?
Well, Rockefeller Center is where weather radio used to be when it worked a bunch of years ago. NBC or whoever, not NBC, I guess whoever owns the building decided to put a restaurant up there. So they couldn't have all these radio transmitters up there anymore. So that was the beginning of the moving of the NOAA weather radio that we think and hope, everybody knows it's back on the air, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
Empire, right?
Yes, it's at Empire now. It's still in test mode. It's still not turned up to full power, but we've got a great signal out here as far as my report said. Anyway, there is a Doppler radar dish up there. It belongs to NBC.
What about the park?
Park has what's called an ASOS system, which is the same thing as at the airports. It's a total electronic, it's a big mother Davis weather system. You have your little one at home on your deck like many of us had. This thing is about 30 feet tall and 20 feet wide. It even has lights in it that they shine up and get the bounce off the clouds to say the ceiling's at 5,000 feet. It's foggy, it's rainy, it's whatever. Yeah. All airports have them.
The call signs of these radars, it's like CO, OVX and whatnot, does that conflict with some broadcast stations out in the West Coast?
No, because they're the airport call signs, like OKX is Upton. So there can't be a KOKX other than Upton. But that's the call sign for the radar.
Okay, but could there be a broadcast station
No.
in California?
No, because supposedly every call sign is unique.
They wouldn't issue the
license.
Yeah. Government's issuing all those licenses, so that's their job. Yes.
Do tornadoes not happen during daylight, or can they occur in the middle of the night?
This one the other night in Morris County was about 11:30, 11:45 at night. Most tornadoes around here occur 4 to 5 to 6 o'clock at night. That's when the severe thunderstorms are cranking.
You see that, you see it.
They can see on Doppler radar what's called a couplet. Instead of looking at the rain, they're looking at the speed of the raindrops. And they'll see right next to each other that a bunch of rain is going north at 100 miles an hour, and 2 feet away, a bunch of rain is going south at 100 miles an hour. That means it's doing this right there.
They determine the speed, the horizontal speed of the raindrop.
Correct. That's the whole Doppler effect.
I never heard of a tornado attacking tall buildings in New York City, Manhattan. I mean, could they-
Well, they've come into the Bronx and Brooklyn, and we've been lucky so far.
I mean, could a
Yes,
tornado
absolutely.
probably,
They've come into Dallas. They've come downtown Houston. Yes, New York is prime. And my guess is when one's going to happen, when we get the when we get the F3 or the F4 hurricane that comes into New York Harbor, it's going to drop tornadoes when it hits the land. Yes.
Notice you haven't mentioned anything about the use of satellites. Why not?
Just because I didn't put it in here, but just because I didn't put it in, that's all. The GOES satellites are up there. They normally have 2. They only last so long. So right now we're on GOES 14, 16, I think. Might be 16 right now. Every couple years they'll put up another one and they park it. It's standing by. So they then fly the older one out, fly the newer one in, and we get images off of that. So every couple years they get recycled, and then they're gone. But
What's the difference in the data collected?
what's
The difference between the data collected?
the satellite data is infrared pictures basically, and visual picture. It's photographs.
How does that differ from what you're seeing on the radio sound or radio?
The radiosonde data is temperature, humidity. The same stuff we're measuring here on Earth, they're measuring every couple feet as they go up to 100,000 feet.
You see the eye from the sky.
Yeah. They're 25,500 miles away. That's how they get the whole Earth. And they take a picture of the whole Earth. When we see it zoomed in just, over the East Coast, the picture was the whole Earth, and then they just zoomed into that.
Are you more likely to give a long-term forecast? The data?
Well, they show you, they assist with, seeing the movement of whole storm systems, as opposed to local weather. The more local you get, the more impact it has on people.
I suppose the satellite doesn't really do much good for the northern edge of Alaska.
The whole Earth is covered.
Oh, even the North Pole?
Well, and there's other countries that have satellites in other sectors. Ours are put up to favor, of course, our country,
Okay.
but the other countries have satellites up there too.
These are kind of stationary satellites.
Correct. They're geostationary. They're moving, but they're geostationary. They're moving the exact same speed as the Earth. And they cover the whole world.
Okay, I thought they were tied to a circle above the equator.
Where they actually are, I don't know. They're just up there. Way up there. Way out. Okay? Yes.
I've noticed on my computer when I'm looking at the radar, that phenomenon you're talking about, the split of the Rampo Mountains.
Yep.
And watch the storm just go around me.
Yep.
And where did you say exactly that split started?
We say it's the hill behind West Milford. There's a ridge line up there, and we go, it hit the ridge. Anyway, there's no science behind that at all, but as you said, happens a lot, doesn't it?
It's amazing. It's amazing.
Okay, so, yeah.
We're up to 17, actually.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, goes 17. There's one that covers the East Coast, one that covers the West Coast. So that's to cover just our continent. So, amateur radio and SKYWARN. Is there a tie? Yes. As coordinators, we're encouraged to establish and conduct SKYWARN nets. And it's usually on a county or several adjoining county bases as we do here. We collect severe weather data. We collect snow reports. Snow's coming. We'll do a net every couple hours, normally every 3. We might do it slower this year because the Weather Service wants 6-hour data now, not 3-hour data. Have to figure that out. But we'll send out on our Twitter feed that we're having nets at 10, 1, 4, and 7 p.m., whatever. Take a measurement, come on the net, tell us what your town, Give us the measurement, it goes into the Weather Service. Amateur radios were great for doing that. So, in Bergen and Passaic County, I'm sure you all remember W2PQG Stan. His repeater is still active. It is no longer up on Skyline Drive due to commercial interest. It is at a much lower height. You all know what that means. We don't have the coverage that we had. We had coverage all the way out to Upton. When Upton, you'll see there's amateur radio set up here in a second. I could talk to the forecast officer or one of their coordinators out there on amateur radio from Bergen County. We're only at about 450 feet now instead of 1,200 feet, so it's a big difference. Anybody has a nice 1,200-foot tower somewhere? Talk to me. I have a little rack of equipment that would like a new home. So we are there, though. 146.700, 600 kilohertz input offset, 141.3, same PLs over on Bergen FM. When are we on the air? We try to be on the air before the severe weather hits Bergen or Passaic County. Not always possible. Got to have Matthew, me, one of the other people available to do that net. We're also on the air, as I said, for the winter storms or blizzards. We're not going to be on the air for a half-inch snowfall. We're going to be on the air if there's a storm warning or a blizzard warning. And then I said, our Twitter feed or our Facebook page is where to find out more information about the scheduled time for those nets. We can't schedule a severe thunderstorm net because they happen when they happen. There's handouts up here with all the information on the frequencies and everything else. So this is my basement and Joyce's basement. This is the weather station over here. There's 3 computers, 3 screens. One in the middle is the Doppler radar. I am seeing exactly the same picture the Weather Service is seeing about 2 seconds after they see it. How all those Doppler radars around the country work is they all go into a server farm in Silver Springs, Maryland. And if you have the right access and the right software, you go in there and you pull your data out. So we're all seeing the same picture at the same time. I can pick any of those radars around the country. I also can pick what are called terminal Doppler radars, which are the ones at some of the airports, such as JFK and Newark. Whole different picture. You have to learn a whole different thing to read those radars. On the right is a thing called MWIN, Emergency Manager's Weather Information System. It's every text product that the Weather Service puts out around the world. I have it set up with filters to only print out stuff for Bergen and Passaic County. I used to run it 24/7. We don't do that anymore. We turn it on for severe weather. Over on the left, as I showed you before, is the NWS chat system, which SKYWARN coordinators, offices of emergency management, personnel, the media, we all can be in those same chat rooms, filing reports, seeing other reports, or I can get asked a question by a meteorologist saying, hey, you got anybody in Wyckoff? What's he seeing as far as frozen precipitation? So that's our 2-way text back and forth. And there's also a couple phones and 4 radios and all kinds of things there. Over on the other side, if you spin around, is our HF setup. We can contact the National Hurricane Center for the hurricane nets, as well as anybody else in the Weather Service that has an HF radio. And of course, SKYWARN Recognition Day that we'll be talking about in a few minutes. So that's the basement. We had a meeting last weekend of the Northern New Jersey ARRL's leadership, and there's some interest in doing a wider area SKYWARN net because right now, local SKYWARN nets are dead. I used to get 30 check-ins between 4 and 5 o'clock during a severe thunderstorm. 99% of the time, I am a broadcast station now giving out a call saying, anybody out there? Anybody got a weather report? There's a thunderstorm, you know that? So if you have an amateur radio in your car, there's severe weather going on, check in on the net, say hi. I'll ask you for a report, and you can help us. But in order to do something like this, of course, a suitable linked repeater system, SKYWARN coordinators, net control operators, and of course buy-in from the weather services all has to be established. but there is at least energy out there trying to make this happen. So, amateur radio at the forecast office. Most most National Weather Service offices have amateur radio set up right in their forecast office. WX2, OKX, there you go. Again, using the OKX. These were vanity signs, but luckily everybody was pretty good on getting them to match. That 100-foot tower that I showed you, the reason for all those antennas could be on one frequency in Bergen County, could have a severe thunderstorm in Connecticut on another frequency. So it's not just one place weather's happening at a time, a place like Upton. Brian, as we said, has his call sign. And there's agreement with the Brookhaven National Laboratories Amateur Radio Club to come in and operate the station if needed. That's the forecast office over there on the left that you saw. See, there's a blank in the wall there, in the panels. This is the warning desk. The radio station's right on the other side of that wall. The operator literally stands up and hands a piece of paper over with a report from amateur radio. Yes?
Is that tornado behind the tower?
No, it's just a cool picture. I was lucky. This is what's behind that wall. As I said, 4 or 5 different 2-meter, 440 type radios. There's also an HF radio, a Kenwood 480. All right. Yeah, Kenwood 480. That's under the desk, ready to go for HF operations. And that's the tower with all those verticals up on top. You don't want to know what that costs for the government to put up a 100-foot tower like that. How many people use Zello? We put it up just to see what would happen. As you see, we have all those hundreds of people that are SKYWARN spotters. We want to see if any of them would start using Zello to talk to us if they're not amateur radio operators. All I can say about Zello is it works. And everybody that seems to have signed up in our talk group, Bergen SKYWARN, also has a call. So the hams also are using Zello. It was unique. And we didn't have yet to pick up the general public that I was hoping to. Social media, yes, it's there. Twitter, Facebook. We use it for advance warnings. We do not use it to send out there's a severe thunderstorm occurring now. The warnings go out hopefully in the morning that there might be activity later in the day. I encourage you to look at our Facebook page, follow it. I encourage you to sign up for our Twitter feed. And as I say, that 450 now is well over 500. And Twitter, I need to go see what's in there. Information, again, is on these pieces of paper up here. The Weather Service also will take reports on Twitter and their Facebook pages. They all have them. In fact, Mount Holly seems to prefer it that way. I don't want to get divulged off, or I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but we're working on that. SKYWARN Recognition Day. Anybody ever work it? Okay. In cooperation with the ARRL, National Weather Service forecast offices, all those 122, or as many as can, across the country, invite amateur radio people to come in and operate in the station. It's a 24-hour operating event, December 7th, Zulu 0 to 2359, however you count that. It's all HF bands. If there's our repeaters in operation, they can use them too. This is the 2018 list, printable off the website. They're all the stations that were having operations going on. Your goal is, just like in every contest, talk to as many as you can, get a report, get checked in, get a certificate, and some neat QSL cards. I cannot find my National Hurricane Center card or my Storm Prediction Center card. They're somewhere in the house. I was hoping to show them tonight. But there are some QSL cards you can get out of this too. These were some of the operations from last year. Over on the left is a setup in Omaha, Nebraska. That's their normal radio room for amateur radio because of all the tornado activity. So they have stations ready to go. Just sit down and operate. Down at the bottom, that's the National Hurricane Center amateur radio setup. Again, it's there all the time, ready to go. And over on the right is what you'll see out at Upton. They come in and set up in the conference room. Bring in a bunch of radios, bring in a bunch of portable antennas, set up and operate. And there's the details on it. If anyone wants to go out to Upton, the Nassau County SKYWARN group is going to be the main coordinators out there for doing the operation at Upton. I can always pull this slide back up if anybody wants to make the drive out there. You do have to be advanced cleared because it's Brookhaven Labs and there's all kinds of weird stuff out there. You do need to be cleared to get in before you just decide to go. So, to put it simply, we need more SKYWARN activity on amateur radio. You all have radios, you all have licenses. We try to be there and active. We could use your report, as could your neighbors, as could your local OEMs, as could the National Weather Service, as could the people in New York City, because we're going to see the weather before they are. I don't know if that's good or bad. So all of that together is what makes it work. It's not just the Doppler. It's not just the satellite. It's not just amateur radio. All those systems together and all those people is what keeps us safe. Any more questions?
At the local National Weather Service station, do you guys have supercomputers there or just a whole bunch of 64-bit machines?
Just a bunch of 64-bit Unix-based machines. Yes. Whatever the Doppler ones, that's Doppler what happens.
George, this is the age beyond amateur radio spotters. I mean, this is the world of citizen scientists, as we heard with Nathaniel Purcell about a year ago. If I go on the Weather Underground, there's probably about 300 stations that I can see just putting my foot up my local zip code and see what's going on. Is the Weather Service doing anything with that data?
Yes, they are looking at the same data. They can access it just like I can.
Are they archiving it for data in terms of
Yes. There's also a program you can put on your cell phone called MPing. M-P-I-N-G, one word. The main use that it came out for was when they developed that dual polarized radar, is they wanted to cross-check the algorithms. So they wanted everybody to click rain, snow, sleet, hail, and they would instantly go into a database. And they'd look at their algorithm and go, we got it. Oh, we need to tweak it. We need to do that. I know you use MPing, right? Yeah. I can pull it. You can pull, if you have the radar scope program on your cell phone, you can pull up the MPing reports and see the other day that all the snow was in central and southern New Jersey and we didn't have any.
How do you spell that again?
M-P-I-N-G, one word. It's available for both Google and iPhones.
Other questions?
Does Weather Service also make use of Channel 4's popular radar, or is that just like just?
They have no access to commercial radar, just government. Yes.
As a historian, at times when I need archival data, I go to the USNO, the Naval Observatory. What's the relationship in data usage between the USNO and NWS?
Department of Commerce versus Department of Defense. That's.
So is it shared data?
They probably can look at each other's data. I know the weather, like I said, those Doppler radars at Fort Dix and Dover are on military bases, but they're National Weather Service radars.
Do you also follow the national snow measurements? NASA. Of course, NASA comes with a great deal of temperature.
Right. Right. Again, it's a federal government agency, so they all talk among themselves somehow. I don't know if they talk the same language, but
Any other questions? Axel?
I know NASA's like looking at weather, like on other planets and stuff. I imagine that some of that information might get looked at at basic science level to try to improve your prediction models.
I'm sure anything that anybody learns from anywhere is going to somehow integrate into the algorithms. It's all about algorithms, whether it's the ads you see on Facebook or the weather forecast that comes out.
They do seem to be getting better at it over the years.
Yeah, well, it's faster computers, more data points, more people's eyes seeing and reporting.
On behalf of the club, thank you very much. I have to say we had more questions tonight, right, than I think we've had for almost any other presenter. Thank you very, very much. Okay.